So now we'll cover the small claims court process. How does it actually work? For plaintiffs, you'll start with filing your complaint. Where should you file? In most cases, that's going to be in the Colorado County where the other party lives or works. The form that you need to use is Form JDF 250. That's called Notice, Claim, and Summons to Appear for Trial. The small claims forms in Word and also fillable PDF format are available on the court's website. You can find them here. Under Forms, Small Claims Forms, you'll see there's JDF 250, Notice, Claim, and Summons to Appear for Trial. The form is also available at the clerk's office. So in filling out the complaint, the first section will be the plaintiff's and the defendant's names. So all the parties' names, addresses, and phone numbers need to be listed there, home and work. And it's very important that you make sure that you're suing the right person or organization. And you should make clear on the form whether you're suing as an individual or a company, and whether you are suing an individual or a company. Here's a sample. This is a correctly filled out complaint. The plaintiff is John Doe Enterprises and also John Doe as an individual. You'll see there's address, phone number, etc. And the defendant is Jane Smith, LLC, and also Jane Smith as an individual. This is an incorrectly filled out form. John Doe Enterprises is okay, but then for the defendant, you have Jane Smith LLC and the registered agent is listed there instead of the company address. And you'll notice that the registered agent is located in Denver. And that would mean that you had brought this claim in the incorrect court because a claim against a defendant in Denver should be brought in Denver County Court, not Boulder County Court. And you'll see below, again, you have Jane Smith, manager, which that part's fine. But it's important to distinguish between the company address and the registered agent. The second section is if the defendant is a corporation, you'll need to go to the Secretary of State's website and figure out who their registered agent is. So that's the individual that was incorrectly listed on the front of the complaint, but you will need to know who that person is and you'll need to fill that information out here. You'll need to know whether the defendant is in the military, whether the defendant lives or works in the county. You'll have to acknowledge that you have to serve the defendant with a copy of the complaint, and we'll talk more about that process in a minute. You have to state whether you're an attorney, and then there's a space for trial date, and the court will fill that part out when you file your claim. In this third section, you'll need to note how much the defendant owes you, and you should know that you can't change this amount at trial. So if you need to change this amount before trial, you should contact the clerk's office. And then you'll need to give a short recitation of the situation. So you should be specific and detailed. You should state the applicable legal theory. So that would be breach of contract, security deposit dispute, civil theft, etc. And if your claim is based on the enforcement of a restrictive covenant or security deposit dispute, then you also need to include the address of the property or residence that gives rise to the dispute. So here are some examples of correctly and incorrectly filled out complaints. This one is correctly filled out. You'll note the amount there, $5,000, and then plenty of detail. So the dates that the agreement was entered, and the date of delivery, and the statement that John Doe has been seeking payment but hasn't received payment, and he's seeking to be paid under the contract that they entered into. This form's incorrectly filled out. The amount is correct, but again, there's just not enough detail. This is similar to the bad demand letter. It just says, we entered a contract, I delivered the widgets, but I didn't get any money, and she won't return my calls. So no dates, it doesn't have enough detail. You should note there are several pages to the complaint, and they're each asking for essentially the same information. So you should just duplicate what you filled out on the first page on each additional page. And the bottom right-hand corner of the complaint states who each copy is for. For example, the defendant's copy contains additional sections on a second page. That version gets served on the defendant, and the defendant has to fill out the second page. And we'll talk about the defendant's responses and counterclaims shortly. So how do I file? You take the completed notice, claim, and summons to appear for trial, the complaint that we've been talking about, to the clerk. You pay the filing fee. The fees can be found on the court's website at Forms and then Filing Fees. You can request a fee waiver if you qualify as indigent. There's a form for that as well, which is also available online. That's Form JDF 205. And you should note that you may need to provide supporting documentation for that. And then when you file a claim, the clerk will set a trial date that's at least 30 days and up to 90 days from the date of filing. And that date will be entered on the notice. Always be polite with the court staff. They're there to help you, and they will do so if you're courteous with them. You should note that they cannot provide you with legal advice, And you should remember that they work closely with the judges. So it's crucial that you're polite with them because that's essentially the first impression that you're making on the court.